This is my baby boy. Hi YouTube, welcome to this video. I'm doing the WriterPunk tag today, and before we get started, I thought I would just update a few things with my channel here, with my audience. As you can see, I have finally finished Mistborn, and I have started The Well of Ascension. For anyone who hasn't been on my channel before, this is what I'm currently reading. The book behind it I've read before, but I'm reading to my nephew, so when he video calls I can just have it handy right there. Like I said, I'm doing the WriterPunk tag today, and that is a tag that is by WriterPunk. I will be linking her channel in the description down below. She tagged me in this a while ago, but I just haven't gotten to it. And then, yeah, I'm really excited about this tag, so let's get into it. So the first question in the tag is, what makes your writing voice unique? And at first I didn't know how to answer this. I was like, I don't know what makes my writing voice unique. I'm not even published. I don't know if the way I'm writing right now is going to be the way it ends up on the page when I eventually am able to publish. But I reached out to one of the members of the writer's workshop that I attend. I should say attended. We haven't really met in person since the whole pandemic thing, and I haven't been joining the Zoom meetings for that. But my friend in the writer's workshop pointed out that I'm good at romance and building meaningful relationships between characters, and that the humor in my books always surprises them. And then I'm told that I also have a well-developed world and am able to see the bigger picture of that world. So that's what I'm told is unique about my writing voice. I trust that because this person has read almost a book and a half's worth of what I've written, and these are like really long books. So that's over 2 and a half years of going to writer's workshop. So yeah, I guess that's my answer to number 1. Question number 2 is, have you ever been teased or bullied for being a writer, and what makes you keep writing anyway? So in person, I really haven't been teased or bullied for being a writer. I think most people think it's really cool, and I think part of that is my enthusiasm for my story. I get really into telling people about it, but I always make sure that I'm not like going off on a tangent that they can't stop and they feel like they're trapped in. So I'll usually introduce my book with what I know about it will be most interesting to that person. And I try not to oversell it right now because it is just like still in the drafting stuff, which I'm going to do another video on because I think I might rework the entire thing. However, I think the most backlash I've gotten about being an author, and this can be controversial here, but has been from the AuthorTube community, where I've reached out for advice and people just go, oh no, that sucks. But they don't tell me what sucks or why or what's bad about it. Especially with submission letters and stuff. I think that that's the main reason I haven't been published, is because I'm not good at the submission letters. I can write the fantasy story. I can make a good story, but as soon as I have to advertise myself and advertise that story, I'm just lost. So yeah, I've gotten some backlash from the AuthorTube community, and then of course I've gotten backlash from publishing companies. There is one in particular where I don't think they even read what I sent them, because when I got feedback from them, which, I mean, I was so excited, none of the rejections I'd ever gotten before that had feedback, it basically said, this isn't a fantasy story. And I was just like, the princess fights a dragon. How is it not fantasy? They live in a different world. There is magic. There are mermaids. Like, I sent you the whole description of the book, but they said that it seemed like it wasn't fantasy just because the magic doesn't happen in the first couple chapters, because the inciting incident is a murder, not magic. I don't know. So that was frustrating to me. The third question is, which of your characters is your stick it to the man poster child? So I would have to go with Gloria Crookston, who is the MC's best friend. And she actually grew up really poor, or was growing up really poor, but then the princess decided that she was going to basically hire her to be her best friend. Because there wasn't really anyone to be the princess's friend because of this whole plague thing that happened, but that's explained more in the third story. Yeah. So she ends up growing up in the palace, but then going home to basically a hut at night. And having that dynamic, she's able to sympathize with the poor, but still like appreciate the noble and the royalty for who they are, at least before they start making policies and stuff. I mean, she is friends with the heir of the kingdom, and yeah, and there's a whole thing there in my story where the class difference is just very jarring between the poor and the rich in this world. Well, in this kingdom, in this world. In other kingdoms in that world, it's like fine. But they're an isolated kingdom, which I was kind of inspired by some history I had been doing in college on China. Granted, I thought, well, what if Europe had been isolated the way China had been isolated? And I tried to create my world with that idea to try and see how that would look. Sorry, I'm getting off topic. But yeah, Gloria Crookston would be my stick it to the man. She does end up being basically a revolutionary and helping to decide who becomes the next ruler of the kingdom. Okay, question number 4. What is the most unconventional way you've subverted a trope? Used or subverted a trope? So I'm actually really excited to answer this one because there is the mentor trope, but I wanted the love interest to be really smart. So I made the love interest the mentor. And so the love interest, he is a wizard. Well, technically he's a warlock because wizards need wands and warlocks do not in my story. He has one, he can use it, but he just doesn't because he doesn't need it. And so I made him both the mentor and the love interest because that way he's able to create these meaningful connections with the MC that allows her to start to understand the world outside of the palace and outside of what's known in the kingdom, because magic was persecuted so much that it's a secret now. Yeah, so I did do that. There is the old wizened gray-haired guy, but he's more just funny. He's less of a mentor other than the very beginning when he used to work in the palace, but he helped Apricot and Gloria meet in the first place. But I don't consider him as much of a mentor because basically everyone ignores what he says anyway, and it ends up fine. Okay, question number 5 is, what's your favorite book that no one has heard of or character that everyone forgets? And I haven't seen anyone talk about this book series aside from like my mother-in-law and I. because she recommended it to me, and I think she found it on Kindle or something. I don't know how she found it, but I read it. It is basically my favorite series that I've ever read. It's the Spoken Mage. There's 4 books. I haven't seen anyone talk about this. It's such a good series. It is about a girl named Elena of Kingsley, and she lives in a world where the written word creates power, and unless you're a mage, you can't control that power, and basically things explode. So no one's allowed to read and write because they could basically blow up their hometown if they try, which makes a lot of sense. So then one day she yells, and that creates power. And so she's the only spoken mage there is, whereas everyone else is a written mage, because that's how their power is released and controlled. And so the whole thing is like the government takes her, and she ends up going to this magical school, and there's a prince, and this whole romantic arc, but there's also this political arc and this intrigue and stuff, as some people think she should be killed, and other people think that they should use her in the war that's been going on for 30 plus years. And it is so good, and I highly recommend it. Okay, question number 6. What's a trend in your genre that you dislike? So the trend in my genre that I dislike is historically impossible, basically prom dresses. I mean, I love reading lots of fantasy and books, and I love when the authors describe what the characters are wearing, because I'm interested in that. I enjoy researching historical fashion, especially on YouTube, and watching CosTubers as well. But one thing I have started to notice a lot is that in these books that I'm reading, whenever there's a ball, these characters are wearing dresses, and the way they're described are very modern, and it feels like they're all wearing prom dresses that wouldn't have existed, or that are so different than the regular fashions that exist in that world, that it pulls me out a little. And I can understand how, if you're not into that, you wouldn't quite understand what would be accurate and not. And I know it's fantasy, and fantasy princesses can be wearing whatever they want, but I feel like the world building should be there so that what your characters are wearing to their fancy balls still makes sense in world. I'm actually going to do another video on that, so eventually I'll link that below when I get that done. Okay, question number 7. Do you want to be a traditionally published author, or is self-publishing your jam? So for my fantasy, I want to be traditionally published, basically because I can't afford the cost of publishing on a teacher salary, and I love teaching, so that's not going to change. And also, I'm growing my family right now. I mean, this is my baby boy. And so it's just not feasible for me to afford the cost of getting professionally edited and all of those steps that it takes to traditionally publish. In addition to that, I'm not a businesswoman. I don't really understand. I think if I tried to traditionally publish my fantasy, I am very certain I would end up in debt, and it would not have been worth it in the first place. And that is not my goal, because I'm not in debt right now. I don't want to be in debt ever. Okay, and then I also am working on another project, which is a set of baby board books, and that I do want to self-publish because it will be easy to edit. I've worked out all of the manuscript for the 4 books for that, and how the spreads will look, Now it's just a matter of illustrating it and figuring out what the next step is, because I don't know what I'm doing. I did try to traditionally publish it initially, but the only publisher I knew that would be interested in it sent me a rejection letter this week, and so I decided, you know what, I think I could traditionally publish a set of, or not, I could self-publish a set of baby board books. The reason that I think only one publisher would be interested in it is because it is religion specific, and so the publishing company that publishes a lot of stuff from the church that I belong to, they said they didn't want to work on it, and so yeah. Okay, question number 8. What's something you do as a writer that you haven't seen other writers do? I'm going to bring that back to my last question, is that series of baby board books. I've been trying to look up information on how to self-publish that, and I want it to be a box set, but everything I'm seeing is just about children's picture books that are paper or hardcover, but still paper inside. So I need to figure out how to do the cardboard books. I mean, I know people do, because they exist. I've got a pile right there, but I don't know the process for doing that, or what it looks like, or any of that. So yeah, gotta figure that out. I can't find anyone else that's done it. So yeah. Question number 9. Do you use a pseudonym or your real name for your works? I'm not published yet, but when I am, I want to go by my own name, Eileen, and I actually want my middle initial there, so it says Eileen D. Nestman, mainly because Eileen ends with an N and Nestman starts with an N, so it kind of like blurs together if you don't put that D in the middle. So yeah, when I eventually am published, I'll go by Eileen D. Nestman, at which point I'll probably have to change my YouTube name. But that shouldn't be too hard, because I've already changed it when I got married. I just got to remember how to do that. Okay, question number 10. What's a trope, narrative style, character archetype, story theme, or plot device that you love but most people dislike? Good versus evil. I love good versus evil. I think it's fallen out of fashion, but I mean, what can I say? I'm a traditionalist. I really enjoy it. And that's not to say that I don't like books that aren't good versus evil, or that have like an internal struggle of the protagonist trying to figure out which side is right. But I'm not going to turn a book away because it has good versus evil. I like it. I mean, I grew up with Narnia, so that basically was my foundation of fantasy in my life. Yeah. If you would like to do this tag, consider yourself tagged. Again, thank you to WriterPunk for creating the WriterPunk tag. And yeah, don't forget to stay creative. Thanks for watching. Bye.